Having debuted in Japan back in July of 2017, The World Ends With You for the Nintendo DS just turned 10 years old earlier this week, which, wow, time sure does fly, huh? Regardless, The World Ends With You is a game that has received many positive reviews, with fans and critics alike praising the graphics, soundtrack, and integration of gameplay into the Shibuya setting. Personally, I greatly enjoy the game and consider it a must-play for anyone. That's why, with the title being relevant and in the news again, so to speak, I decided to do this video to explain a bit about the game, discuss its pros and cons, and talk about its future. With the intro out of the way, let's get started. And oh yeah, because I've been told that apparently I'm a terrible person, and the amount of spoiling I do sometimes is, and I quote,
sinful as far as reviews go.
I'm basically going to paraphrase the premise off the game's TV tropes page, so any and all blame can be directed there. Ahem. The World Ends With You tells the story of Neku Sakuraba, an antisocial teen who wakes up one day on the crossroads of Shibuya, Tokyo, with no clue how he got there. He soon discovers that he has been dumped into a Phantom Zone version of Shibuya called the Underground, where he'll be forced to play the week-long Reapers game. Victory will allow Neku to recover his lost memories and escape from the underground, while failure will lead to him being erased from existence. The rules of the Reapers game dictate that it must be played in teams of 2, so Neku quickly becomes partnered with Shiki, a fashion-conscious chatterbox who becomes the first person to break into his world. Aww. Other characters include the hot-headed skater Beat, his much more logical partner Rhyme, and the mysterious, way too clever Joshua. Armed with mysterious psychic powers, the group fights to overcome the challenges set by the Reapers game and survive their 7 days in the underground. Being that the plot is a whirlwind of reveals and gambits, you're even encouraged to play it a second time to gather more info about the lore. Though The World Ends With You falls into the category of action RPG, it has some unique elements as well. For instance, gameplay consists of exploring Shibuya to complete each day's mission, with that usually involving some sort of combat. However, combat takes place across both screens of the DS, with Neku on the touchscreen and his partner on the top screen. Neku is controlled by performing touchscreen actions. These can be anything from slashing across an enemy, tapping the screen rapidly to fire bullets, holding down on an enemy to inflict damage, or shouting into the microphone to cause a full screen attack. Since Neku receives his powers from different pins within the game, what moves you do depend on what pins you have equipped. Meanwhile, Neku's partner on the top screen is controlled by using the face buttons for a card game based mechanic, such as matching face down Zener cards. The challenge of the game comes from the fact that you essentially control both characters at the same time, having to split your attention between the two. And since Neku and his partner share the same health bar, this means that even if one character doesn't take damage, you can still lose if the other person takes too much. And oh yeah, remember earlier when I mentioned the pins that give Neku his powers? Well, that's not the only purpose they serve. See, each district in the overworld has its own fashion trends that affect gameplay. This means that wearing certain pins and clothing messes with stats. When you wear more popular brands in that district, items' effects will be improved, while wearing the least fashionable brands does the opposite. This, of course, means that not only do you have to pay careful attention when in combat, what with the controlling two characters at the same time and all, but you also need to be conscious of what pins and clothes you have equipped in what district, since there's a stats game in play as well. Everything that I have told you may be a lot to take in, but trust me, the game is pretty fun to play once you get into it. Though kind of a bit of an obscure title, it has a pretty large following among its fans, and as I've said before, lots of pros going for it, such as pretty good graphics, especially when you consider that this is a DS title, a great soundtrack, and a really cool way to show off the Shibuya district of Tokyo as well as its fashion. Not only that, but as complex as the gameplay may sound, I think it's pretty unique, and I appreciate that the creators went for something really different compared to other Square Enix titles. I mean, hey, even the difficulty of the game can be seen as kind of a pro if you are someone who's looking for a challenge, I guess. Of course, not everyone will dig the difficulty, which is why I would still include the hard learning curve as a con as well, since it might be a little too much for some people. Another con in the game might be the characters for some players. Though I had no problems with anyone, I can see some being annoyed by Neku's emo-like attitude, Shiki's ditzy personality, Joshua's I'm better than you snark, or Beat's wannabe gangster vibe. There is character development and depth, but I can see some players tapping out before all that. And finally, the plot can be kinda confusing for some, just throwing that out there. In my opinion though, I would still suggest at least giving the game a try. I mean, just looking at its staying power must mean that it's done something right. Speaking of which, despite being only one game, it has quite a legacy. For one, it's sold extremely well in Japan and has earned a cult following around the world. 2, it was remade for iOS in 2012 and Android in 2014. 3, Neku and the gang became the first non-Disney and non-Final Fantasy characters to appear in the Kingdom Hearts franchise, with the cameo in Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. Quite a big honor, I'd say. 4, it has its own one-shot tie-in manga. And 5, there's even a social game based on it. Clearly, a lot of people love this game, and to many, even 10 years later, it is quite special. Take a look around the web, and you'll find many people talking about how bad they want more, wishing for a sequel. Will The World Ends With You ever receive a sequel? Who knows? While it would have made sense to strike while the iron was hot, and more time passing makes it seem like the game has been forgotten, let's not forget the world we live in. In a world where The Last Guardian and Final Fantasy XV finally released after 10 years of development, and a world in which Beyond Good and Evil 2 has finally been announced, I'd say anything's possible. Until then, I'd just say to enjoy what we have. But hey, that's just my opinion. And remember, don't take anything I say too seriously. After all, I'm just a wannabe reviewer. Happy 10-year anniversary.